What a win for the Baltimore Ravens. They destroy the San Francisco 49ers by the final score of 33-19. We talk about how the Ravens established themselves and got themselves into that conversation for the best team in the entire NFL, all here on an instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We're your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, and I'm your host, Kevin Ostraker of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. As always, thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day, literally here as we are live past midnight here on Locked On Ravens. 12:45, had some technical difficulties getting the show out at 12:30, but hey, you know what? Technical difficulties will not stop me. We are free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes over in video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get those podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Down on the Gametime app, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, a Merry Christmas to everybody out there. I know it's December 26th, but the Ravens certainly delivered a very Merry Christmas gift to this team, well, to the fan base from the team, as the Ravens just, I don't even know the word, that they eviscerate, honestly, the 49ers 33-19. It was a game that, honestly, the 49ers, they had a shot to go up early. The defense snuffed it out, and at that point, they never recovered. We'll talk about that throughout the course of the entire game here. As for Baltimore, there's a lot to like. I mean, they played a near perfect game. Now, not a totally perfect game. There's still some things you would like to see get cleaned up here and there are some other things too. But for the most part, Baltimore did a great job. And now, just a reminder, we are a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast here, plus more, and we do these live streams. We do them after every single Ravens game. Plus, if there is any big news, we do them as well. After that happens, we do those live instant reaction episodes that get engaged with the chat. I see our chat is popping here right now. Really appreciate everybody staying up late with me here on Locked On Ravens. And it's exciting, right? This team, there was so much disrespect all week. We'll talk about that. We talked about it all week. So if you want to look at any of our shows from the past week, you can do that. But this team proved everybody wrong that had doubted them. Now, there were me and probably you and others, the believers, right? I picked the Ravens to win this game. Didn't necessarily think it was going to go this way, but it absolutely did. And I'm so excited right now. I accidentally hit my camera a little bit there. But yeah, this is awesome. So again, be sure to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube if you want 5-day-a-week Ravens content. You can also subscribe in audio form for that same content in audio form or video form. And we're bringing you it because this team is super exciting. We have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about here today. And we'll get to the comments. I see the chat. I might not be able to get to everybody here on the chat. It is popping out here. But let's first start off with the offense, right? Let's start off with Lamar, Mr. MVP, as I'm going to call him now, because what did he do in this game? He left no doubt in my mind, and there should be no doubt in anybody else's mind, that he is going to be the 2023 league MVP here. On national television for the second straight week, Lamar Jackson just balled out. I mean, he went 23-35 in this game, 252, 2 touchdowns in this one, also 7 carries for 45 yards on the ground. Once again, cool, calm, and collected Lamar Jackson was in this game. I thought, again, he was able to go through his progressions very nicely. Did have that play early on where he ran into the end zone. The ref tripped him, which I feel like if a ref impacts a play to that degree where it literally costs the other team points, there should be some sort of do-over. They put the ball at the 1-yard line or something. Now, Lamar shouldn't have run into the end zone. I think that was a poor decision on his part. But you cannot tell me that with Lamar Jackson's speed, he wouldn't have outrun Chase Young on that if he wasn't tripped up by the referee. But regardless, outside of that, Lamar played a really, really good game. We have What Is Love here in the chat, talking MVP here. He thinks it's currently CMC and Lamar. Could be Tua or Tyreek. He also says Jacob Ward. How about them Ravens? Danny Park's been talking in the chat here. Dominic Jones in here. We have a lot of people in here. Amelia Wright, Tony Malik. Yeah, we have plenty of people, and I'm really excited and thankful for everybody who's tuning in here because, look, you want to talk about a statement win. You want to talk about the best one of the Ravens season. I had said it was the Rams game, and I stand by the fact that if you want to look at, what win gives you the most when it comes to the Ravens and what this team's identity is. That team, the Ravens, when they played the Rams, what happened? Came from behind, really good Rams team. San Francisco tops it. This is the best one of the season for the Ravens, 100%. This was a game that, again, the Ravens were given no shot in by a lot of people. They had to go to San Francisco. There were some factors against them. I didn't think the Ravens would win this way, but look, they had the capabilities, and they absolutely did that as well. And we have Wrapped in Sports here saying that we kicked the family-friendly show. I'm not going to say that, but, kicked them, the 49ers there. Floyer was right. His team wouldn't get blown out, but he did not pick the right one. We will talk about Mike Florio in the second part of the show here. David Garcia, I see you in there, man. I appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, Jacob saying game of the year for Baltimore. I 100% think it is. You want to beat the best? You want to get that recognition? You got to beat the best. The Ravens should have had it well before this point, if we're being completely honest. I mean, there was a lot of just disrespectful conversation because, again, I understand if, the Ravens had struggled coming into this game. Maybe they were on a 3-game losing streak, or they had a bunch of injuries, like Lamar goes down. This is not the Panthers. This is not the Commanders or the Jets. This is a team that's been consistent overall, not completely, but mostly consistent overall for the most part. And I just didn't understand where guys like Mike Florio, Shannon Sharp, Emmanuel Acho, all those guys are saying, yeah, the Ravens have no shot taking Brock Purdy over Lamar. And if you went to my Twitter, or X at this point, I have all those receipts out there. Lamar Jackson buried Mike Florio. I see who's that? Anthony Luis saying Mike Flores. Lamar Jackson, if you saw the clip, I have it out on my Twitter. He ended up talking about how, going back to the locker room, he was giggling, and he said Mike Flores. An all-time, Mike Florio wants to disrespect the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's going to disrespect you right back. And he absolutely did that. But he did take the high road saying, look, nothing against the 49ers. It wasn't about the 49ers. But he said, the Ravens are football players. They're professionals. They want to feed their families. They go out there. They do their job. And to give them no shot, Patrick Queen said some of the same stuff. I just don't get where that came from. John saying I predicted the Ravens win. I absolutely did. I believed in them. There was no reason for me to pick against them. 49ers are a great team, but with the way the Ravens are playing, I'm not going to discount everything the Ravens did just because San Francisco is playing really well. I believe in the Ravens, and I know a lot of other people did too. And yeah, that's some of the reasons why I picked this team. Tremor Pulse saying second half was insane. Keep up the good stuff. For context here, this was a 7-5 game going into, a 5-3 game going into the second quarter. The Ravens put up a 13 spot in the second quarter, a 17 spot in the third quarter, a 30-7 run there for the Ravens in between the second and third quarters combined. That's what won them this game, and it was really, really important as well. I saw a comment about Mike McDonald somewhere up here. I'll find it when we'll talk about Mike McDonald a little bit. I thought his game plan was immaculate. Let's finish talking about the offense, though, in this first part of the show. Then we will move on to the defense and some more stuff about, obviously, the disrespect, because Baltimore, they were the most disrespected team coming into this game. I am very interested to see the narratives tomorrow and what they are going to be, because maybe we're going to see a complete shift, or maybe the goalposts will shift, and we're going to be talking about it here on Locked On Ravens. We have a special guest coming up tomorrow, too. Well, not tomorrow, on Wednesday's show, so be sure to stay tuned. Still got a show coming out 6 a.m. tomorrow, so be sure to stay tuned. We'll talk about how Lamar secured the MVP. But Gus Edwards, 9 for 31, Justice Hill, 10 for 26 on the ground. Wasn't a great rushing day for the Ravens, but they didn't really have to have a great rushing day, because by the time the Ravens were rushing the ball, it was late in the game, and the 49ers were kind of stacking the box already because they needed to get stops, and they were stripping the ball, trying to get the ball out. This was the Zay Flowers game receiving-wise, though, 9 for 72 and a touchdown for Zay, 13 targets on the day. No other player had more than 4 targets for the Ravens. Isaiah Likely, 3 for 56. Gus Edwards had that great 1 for 39 reception where Lamar talked about how, you remember the Detroit play where Gus Edwards kind of slipped out of the backfield. Lamar was scrambling, couldn't find anything, threw to Gus for, 80 yards. Felt like that was kind of what happened on this play too. Gus was blocking, and he ended up kind of shimmying free, and he took that ball for 39 yards. I think, though, that the Ravens took advantage of their opportunities, right? I mean, we talked all season about how the Ravens defense has been giving them opportunities, but sometimes they just don't in the red zone. But what happened in this game? Baltimore went 3 of 6 in the red zone. So again, not a crazy great red zone game, but you scored 3 touchdowns. I don't care who you are. This Ravens defense, the way they're playing, I'm confident in them that they can shut down that. Plus, Justin Tucker obviously had his fair share of points. Penalty-wise, 6 for 67 for the Ravens, 10 for 102 for the 49ers. Rough game there. The Ravens only go 4 for 11 on third down compared to 6 of 14 for San Francisco. And Baltimore only holds the ball for about 2-3 minutes more than San Francisco does. But my thing about the time of possession, and we'll get into this, talk about this a bit more in the second part of the show. But to me, the Ravens' MO for years under Greg Roman, right? What was it? It was, we're going to run the ball, we're going to hold the ball for 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes, and we're going to score. And we're not going to let you get the ball. This year, what is the Ravens' MO? It's we'll go 7 plays, 75 yards in 3 minutes and 25 seconds. We'll go 10 plays, 83 yards in 5 minutes and 2 seconds, because they are an efficient offense this year. Their efficiency is crazy right now. Plus, they trust that defense on the other side, and they absolutely should have because of the way that they played. Coming up in the second part of the show, we will talk about that defense, how they set the tone early and stopped the potentially disastrous game script from happening to the Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned. We have a lot to talk about here on this live edition, instant reaction episode of Locked On Ravens. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right here in just a second. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot over on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with that winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your team wins that money line bet there. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. Plus, there's a wide range of betting options. It includes spreads, player props, over-unders, and a lot more. So for that Ravens game, man, if you pick the Ravens to win, you're probably living large right now. Bunch of overs, Brock Purdy to throw some interceptions. You're probably if you pick Kyle Hamilton to have an interception, maybe you picked Zay Flowers, anytime touchdown. There are plenty of props to take advantage of over on FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We're back for our second segment of Locked On Ravens live edition. Kevin Oestreicher coming at you on Tuesday morning, the day after Christmas. Again, hope your Christmas was merry. Mine certainly was. Got to watch the Denver Nuggets win. For those who don't know, I'm a Denver Nuggets fan. Got to watch them win earlier. Got to spend it with some family and enjoy a great dinner. And then obviously got to watch the Ravens just absolutely whoop up on the San Francisco 49ers. And this one, our chat is popping here. You can subscribe on YouTube, follow along in audio form for our 5-day-a-week Ravens content. It's exciting now, right? We're talking about a team that has a chance to lock up the AFC's number 1 team with one over the Dolphins next week. Daniel saying, Mike Macdonald, best defensive coordinator since Chuck Pagano. Man, he's already up there. He's already up in that conversation for all-time defensive coordinator. Now, there's no disrespect to any other guys, any of the other longer tenured guys too. But Mike Macdonald has been incredible this season. Really got to hope a team does not take him away from the Ravens. I'm still trying to find that Mike Macdonald comment that I saw earlier, but it was something about Macdonald. And if I see Junior Joe, yeah, big Kevin Oestreicher. That's right. Yep. Marlon, 100% out there. Yep. Merry Christmas. I appreciate you, Junior Joe. Thanks for tuning in here. But yeah, I see Archie saying, going to get my first NFL jersey as a Ravens jersey after the game as a Christmas present. In the comments, what jersey should they get? What jersey, first Ravens jersey, first NFL jersey, what should that first jersey be? Put it down in the comments. Help them out a little bit. I know I'm a little late, but be sure to put down who that jersey should be as well. Eli saying 19-1 versus the NFC. That's pretty dang good. 20-1. It's 20-1 actually, Eli. It honestly gets lost for me. I don't really know, but I looked it up. It's 20-1 versus the NFC, which is absolutely crazy. Emil checking in from Puerto Rico saying he loved the game. Yeah, I see David saying Ray Lewis. David saying Ray Lewis. Raven 76 Bmore saying Ed Reed. We got Kyle Hamilton, Lamar. You got some choices to pick from, so those are all great choices here. But let's talk about the defense a little bit. I see Christopher saying Kyle Hamilton. I also see Anita saying Kyle Hamilton as well. Kyle Hamilton potentially saved the Ravens from disaster in this game. I'm not saying it would have been disaster if it did happen, but Kyle Hamilton, that first defensive drive for the Ravens, they get walked down the field by George Kittle. Walked down the field. But here's my thing, and I don't know if other people think like this, but I do. When there's a long run or a long completion on this Ravens defense, I think to myself, okay, just get them down. Don't let them, like the Jamal Agnew play last week. If they get Jamal Agnew down I don't know, at the 5-yard line or the 3-yard line, there's no guarantee that the Jaguars score because that Ravens defense is so good in the red zone in between the 20s, right? Well, even just, in their own red zone, they're so good. George Kittle has a couple of really big plays, right? He gets the 49ers down inside the 20. I'm thinking to myself, I don't think the 49ers are going to score here. They'll score a touchdown, right? I'm thinking, hey, you know what? They can hold them to 3. Well, Kyle Hamilton reads Brock Purdy's eyes, baits him into a throw, and the 49ers come away with no points. Then obviously the Lamar safety happens. The 49ers, again, march down the field a little bit, but then they can only get a field goal out of it. It's 5-0. I think 5-0, right? It was 5-0, then 5-3 Ravens. So the Ravens, they have an ability here. It's the bend don't break we've been talking about for so long, and it's part of the reason why Kyle Hamilton is so important to what the Ravens do on defense, because with no Arthur Millette in this game, no Pepe Williams, no Jalen Davis, that's 3 depth pieces at corner down. I think Ronald Darby stepped up in a pretty big way. Marlon played really well. Brandon Stevens played well. This entire secondary is playing just lockstep with each other. Marcus Williams had a rough go of it against George Kittle early, but I still think had a really, I don't know. I say he recovered. He solidly recovered in this one. But I think that Kyle Hamilton is the most important player on this defense. You can give that award to a lot of people. Roquan Smith, Justin Madubuike, Patrick Queen, Marlon Humphrey, whoever. Kyle Hamilton plays so many different roles on that defense and takes up so much space doing so many different things. He, to me, was the one that gave the Ravens that first opportunity and then just kept on. The Ravens defense was the gift that kept on giving to the Ravens offense, and that's really what it was. I see Daniel saying he plays very similar to like an Ed Reed or Cam Chancellor. I'd compare him more to Cam Chancellor. I understand the Ed comparison because I do think he has that range, but I think that Baltimore, even though they played Ed up at the line and he blitzed a ton, right? Like he plays that way. Hamilton's a threat off the edge. Ed Reed was a threat off the edge, right? Ed Reed was a physical dude too. Both those comparisons are really, really good. I just think the build is a little more similar to Cam Chancellor, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't think the play style is off between Ed Reed or Cam Chancellor, but I think his build is more similar to Cam Chancellor, like that bulking safety. So that's what it was there as well. Danny's saying the yards after catch kills us sometimes. It almost got us early on tonight. We got to be ready for Tyreek. What the Ravens are doing in this game, and this is something I noticed, is they were committing very hard one way or the other. If they blitz guys, they were blitzing hard, and that made guys run themselves out of the play, where they were crashing hard on rushing lanes, and you would essentially see McCaffrey and another guy run through each other in the night, right? The Ravens defender would run right past McCaffrey. So the Ravens were, I think, being really disciplined in their gas, maybe a little too disciplined, and that's where we saw McCaffrey break off a couple of really, really large runs for them. Now, obviously, there's a wonder about Kyle Hamilton and what he's going to do in terms of his injury. He ends up injuring himself late in the game, has a knee injury. John Harbaugh did say that he's not anticipating anything overly crazy, is not anticipating anything serious. So I don't necessarily know what the Ravens will do in terms of his load management, I guess I'd call it. Do they rest him against Miami? Do they rest him against Pittsburgh to get him healthy for the playoffs? But look, the Ravens hopefully will be able to beat Miami next week. We'll talk about that in the final part of the show. But yeah, Baltimore did a really, really good job in this game. I'm still trying to catch up on comments. John saying he thinks McDonald's the best Ravens defensive coordinator ever. His ability to, one, disguise things, but two, he's been able to marry aggressiveness with conservativeness in a way that not a lot of defensive coordinators can. Sometimes defensive coordinators tend to get a little over-aggressive at times, or they tend to be too conservative. I think Mike Macdonald just understands his personnel in such a way right now that I just it's something I haven't really seen this consistent from a defensive coordinator. So, yeah, I don't really know. Kerry's saying, I wish the broadcasters would stop the McDonald head coaching opportunities. He's going to get some looks, guys. I mean, I wish it wasn't going to be that way. Now, it's up to him if he stays or not. Is he going to entertain any of those? I can't answer that, obviously. But teams are going to be interested. We're going to see how it all pans out for them here as well. What is Love saying the 49ers have too many weapons sooner or later. Kittle, Debo, CMC is going to have to get some yardage. The Ravens limited them very well. Even Brandon Ayuk, right? Brandon Ayuk was making some plays late in this game And Troy saying our defensive players are 100% sold on our scheme. It's unselfish Ravens defense. And what I liked about this performance in particular is the Ravens turned the ball over, turned the 49ers over early, and then late in the game, they got sacks to seal the game. Now, I know the fourth quarter was a little iffy. I know some people were getting a little worried about that fourth quarter, but look, it was only 7-0. San Francisco was only able to muster 7 points. The Ravens, again, they bent, but they did not break. And it was really impressive to me how they were able to perform. If you want to look at the pure box score, we'll do that for a second here. Roquan Smith, 8 total tackles on the day here. Marcus Williams had 7. Patrick Queen had 7. Then you have Brandon Stevens with 5. Kyle Hamilton with 5. But then again, interception-wise, you have guys all over the place. Kyle Hamilton had 2. Marcus Williams had 1. Patrick Queen had 1. And Marlon Humphrey had 1 as well. The Patrick Queen one was a little iffy. Should have gone down, but the ball was wobbling a little bit. I was a little concerned they were going to give it back to San Francisco. Luckily, they didn't deem it to be moving enough in order to give the Ravens the ball. They're deep into San Francisco territory. But it was just play after play after play. And Purdy almost threw a 5th interception to Brandon Stevens, by the way. I think that's going to get lost in the sauce a little bit. But Brandon Stevens almost had a 5th interception. But they're just clicking right now. The Ravens, the vibes are there. For the most part, no jinxing. The health has been there overall. They've lost Mark Andrews. They've lost Keaton Mitchell, J.K. Dobbins. They've had guys in and out. But look, part of winning a Super Bowl is how healthy can you be when it comes down to January. Can you have your guys healthy? You want to take an example from the North a couple of years ago? Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals for a second. Ravens that year were decimated up and down their roster with injuries. It was a year many people expected them to take a leap and win the division. But what happened? Baltimore ended up just being decimated. Who did not get decimated? It was Cincinnati. I'm not trying to take away from what Cincinnati did that season. It was impressive. But again, the same excuses that were used for the Ravens with injuries, or the same excuses that are used for other teams, with injuries, somehow weren't used back then for the Ravens. And I just don't get where the disconnect is, where the Ravens have to do everything and then other teams can have excuses with injuries, right? It's interesting to me how that's the case. Coming up in this final part of the show, that we will look ahead to what's next, get into more comments, and just still continue to talk about how the Ravens did this, plus a little teaser to tomorrow's episode. It's coming out on Tuesday, the MVP conversation. Stay tuned for that. We have plenty to talk about on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. First, this episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. And for me, I've had a bunch of frustrating ticket experiences in my life. Sometimes I couldn't find last-minute tickets. Sometimes I wasn't sure if the seats were even good. Sometimes I couldn't find good deals in general. But you shouldn't even have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, because Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all on prices, views from receipt, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And there are a bunch of things to like over on the Gametime app. The Ravens are now done with away games. They are going to play Miami in Week 17, Pittsburgh in Week 18 at home. So be sure you don't miss those games with Gametime. They have last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals as well. Plus, Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can buy tickets in 2 seconds with taps, and they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on those tickets. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Down at the Gametime app, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, in terms of apply, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKED1NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. We're back rounding out Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here on this Monday evening or Tuesday morning, if you want to call it that, depending on where you are. I appreciate everybody tuning in here on Christmas or the day after and making us your first listen each and every day here. Again, we do live streams after every single Ravens game and after big news that happens. Be sure to turn notifications on YouTube. You can catch them after the fact too, whether it is in audio form, so those come out, the recordings do, or in video form on the playback. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a ton. Like the video as well. That helps me out too. We've built a lot of communities here over the years. I've been doing this since 2019, talking about this team, and that 2019 team was exciting. This team's exciting too. So be sure to subscribe, follow along as well to the channel. Baltimore, again, 33-19 over the San Francisco 49ers. And Troy here saying you have to love the team vibe right now. When has this team been this in the zone this late in the season? You can even hear it. You know, the post game, the ABC post game, of everything. It was, MVP, cool. Playoffs, cool, right? Next week, cool. It's 1 week at a time for this Ravens team. They know what their goal is. They know what they have to do to get there. And what do they have to do? They can't get too far ahead of themselves. They can't do it. If they look ahead, I think Baltimore, if you want to go back to 2019, I think they were maybe looking ahead a little bit in that AFC Championship game, and they are going to it and saying, oh, you know what? We beat Tennessee. We're going to the championship game. And look what happened there. Daryl, good point here from Daryl. I want to highlight this one. The offensive tackle was the story of the game. Chase and Bosa were non-factors for the most part of the game. This is a great point by Daryl. I want to give a shout out. I live streamed over on Bleacher Report about an hour ago, and I said the exact same thing here. Exact same thing. Baltimore's offensive line in this game, want to give him a shout out because we've talked a lot. Ronnie Stanley, Morgan Moses, the rotation. That 49ers defensive line is no joke. Javon Hargrave had some pressures, but Nick Bosa, non-factors. Daryl said Chase Young, non-factor. I thought the tackles held up really well for the most part. Wasn't perfect, but gave Lamar pretty good time to throw, and it's helped him out. Lamar's had those pockets that you dream of as a quarterback, where he can sit back there for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds. And plus, with Lamar's ability to navigate out of the pocket, do his thing, I think it's a perfect marriage between Lamar Jackson's ability and the skill set of these offensive linemen. I think Ronnie Stanley's a little in the middle of his skill set, plus just the injuries in general. But I don't know. I feel like there's so much to like about Baltimore right now. The vibes are there, as Troy said, but there's a ton of stuff when it comes to physicality too. The Ravens are a physical team. I think they're probably the most physical team in the NFL, and the Ravens, I think, embrace that in the offseason, especially defensively. Justin Houston, Locked On Ravens legend here, more of a finesse player, right? Someone who he's a third down specialist, can get you sacks, right? 100%. But bring in Jadeveon Clowney, a physical tone setter in the run game, physical pass rusher. Marcus Peters versus Rock Ya-Sin. Ya-Sin hasn't really played this season, but Marcus Peters, right? More of a finesse corner, baits guys into throws, but doesn't necessarily tackle. Rock Ya-Sin suplexes guys on the field. The Ravens have embraced the physicality, and that to me is really important, especially when you get down to the playoffs when guys are more and more worn down. This team has warriors on it, right? They have absolute warriors, and I'm really excited for it. Wadislav saying the Ravens lose to themselves. That's why we have 3 losses. I would say the Ravens have beat themselves twice. I'll say Cleveland beat them. Cleveland beat the Ravens. I just think the Cleveland wanted that game more than the Ravens did. But the Ravens absolutely did beat themselves against the Steelers. They beat themselves against the Colts as well. Those are 2 games I'll give to you and say the Ravens beat themselves. So woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? We can talk about that all night long. But Baltimore is incredible right now. And I see in the chat, let's look ahead a little bit when we're talking about what the Ravens have upcoming. Darth Zorn saying Miami's going to get destroyed. If the Ravens can beat the Niners, Ravens can beat anybody. You got to worry about different things with different teams, but Miami's been through a litany of injuries. Looks like Jalen Waddle will not be playing in this game. We'll talk with Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins upcoming here. We'll do that for Crossover Thursday, so we'll get more of a up-close look, behind them enemy lines look at the Dolphins. But yeah, 49ers, they're a wagon. I mean, it's just like the Lions and just like the Seahawks game. Just because the Ravens blew out these teams the way they did does not mean that all of a sudden these teams aren't good. The 49ers, even though the Ravens established themselves as the best team in the league tonight, 49ers are the second best team in the league. That's a potential Super Bowl preview, and not for the reason Mike Florio said. Absolutely not for the reason Mike Florio said. It is because Baltimore and San Francisco are both 2 talented teams. Not San Francisco blowing anybody out. It ended up being the opposite. So Mike Florio got dunked on by everybody tonight, dunked on by Lamar Jackson himself. So hopefully the disrespect does not stay. But hey, you know what? Looks like that disrespect fuels this team. So, maybe keep it coming a little bit. We'll see as well. Wadislav saying Tua under pressure will crumble. Tua against the blitz has been up and down for him over the course of his career. We'll see, though. I think the Ravens defense broke Brock Purdy, though. I think they did. I think Brock Purdy was scared. He was playing scared after that first. I think he had a lot of confidence coming out. Hit George Kittle for a couple of really big plays, but he was scared in that game. So it was a statement, Even last week's game was a statement, but to do it against a team that's not falling apart. Jacksonville's falling apart right now. The Ravens, they did it against a team in San Francisco that is not falling apart too. Troy saying, great point. You can see it in Purdy's eyes. The pressure got him. They have so many battle-proven players this year. Urban, Pierce, Clowney, sacks. Tua better be studying the tape. Yeah, he's so good. I see Matabike is so good. I see in the chat too. I don't know who beats this team. I'm not trying to say they're going to win every game. They're going to, I'm not trying to jinx anything here. But if you're the Ravens, no one should scare you. No one should scare you. Your defense is elite, the best unit in the league. Your offense has finally found something here. So to me, I think that everything's working and the Ravens are staying healthy for the most part right now. Right now, I'm not jinxing. Please, I'm not trying to do that. But if everything continues on this path for the Ravens, could be looking like a team of destiny. And again, not saying it's going to happen, but again, it's 1-0 every single week. That's the mindset this Ravens team has right now. And it's just so exciting to see a team like this that genuinely likes each other. The players are playing for the coaches are coaching for the players. The vibes are at an all-time high right now. I see Dominic saying our team is so locked in right now. I love the message the whole year, one day at a time, one game at a time. That's exactly what it is. One every week, we win the chip. Just keep that focus. Yeah, Matt saying Purdy folded after the first interception. Completely different player. 1,000% agree with you there, Matt. Doris Soren asking about Kyle Hamilton's status. Wasn't anything clear and actually concise from John Harbaugh, but did say that he's not expecting anything overly serious. Wadislav saying that. Thank you, Wadislav, for that. Denny Park saying Purdy's definitely not an MVP. Medium wants the Mr. Irrelevant storyline. And TMB saying Lamar Jackson MVP. Purdy started getting fearful when he crumbled. Let's end the show with that because we are going to be back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time, talking about how Lamar Jackson just absolutely won this MVP, took it from the clutches of Brock Purdy. I think it was Lamar's anyway, but he destroyed all narratives. For Lamar here, he was somebody that took advantage of the defensive opportunities that he was given, made highlight plays again on national television. What did Brock Purdy do? 3 first-half interceptions, 4 total, and I know that he got quote-unquote injured. I know he was shaken up, but you could essentially call that a benching, and some people are calling it a benching, right? You don't bench the MVP like that, right? The 49ers, Sam Darnold willed him down that field a little bit, didn't he? It goes back to my point exactly what I was saying on the show, why I believe Lamar's the MVP and why I believe Lamar Jackson is the most valuable player in the league. Because Brock Purdy goes out, Sam Darnold comes in, he leads him down that field multiple times. What happens if Lamar Jackson leaves that game? Tyler Huntley comes in. No disrespect to Tyler Huntley. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody here. But this Ravens team is not the same. This Ravens team does not have that same juice, same energy without Lamar. Lamar makes the difference for this team. Lamar is this Ravens team. Now, not the whole team, right? The defense has played really well. Lamar doesn't play defense, although I'd be curious to see how that worked out. But Lamar is the most valuable player, might not have the most passing yards in the league, might not have the most passing touchdowns. But what you're looking at is a cool, calm, and collected quarterback who can make electric plays with his arm and with his legs. And tomorrow on Locked On Ravens, we'll be talking about that. So be sure to stay tuned for our 6 a.m. episode. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. I appreciate everybody for tuning in on this late night live stream. Again, be sure to subscribe to the channel, video form, audio form for 5 days a week Ravens content plus more. As I mentioned, again, we'll be right back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time, talking about Lamar Jackson and how he absolutely won the MVP here tonight. Stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.